There are continuous noises and intermittent noises like pops and clicks and stuff like that. A lot of times you might tend to do them in a certain order. The reason for that being is that it can kind of be like peeling an onion, in that if I remove the broadband noise, it can show some other noise. And another example, a good example of that, if someone is recorded to tape originally and it's been 10 years now and that tape has been transferred a couple of times, you could remove what seems like this layer of noise that's there. You remove it, and that was the noise from the loudest tape machine. So now you're left with a second generation of a different type of noise, and that can confuse the algorithm and give you bad noise reduction artifacts. So anyway, when you're doing noise reduction for tape, it's always best to try to get the earliest version, because of that. The noise itself can build up and cause problems and peel away. Removing one tick can start to show that there were actually pre-ticks or post-ticks that you weren't hearing because it was masking the other ticks. So anyway, noise reduction is a weird thing. And more than likely, as we start doing some stuff, there's going to be a lot of going back and forth and trying this and trying that. Real quick, just to kind of, I'd mentioned that there's kind of a process and an order to it. There's no rules, but generally, and I've got some notes here just because I didn't want to forget this, but in general, if you're really attacking a horribly, I shouldn't say horribly, let's say you have an old vinyl that you needed to transfer and clean up. The general order is tonal artifacts. You're going to get rid of buzzing and humming and that kind of thing first. And then you want to get rid of the ticks and pops, the loud ticks and pops that stick out. And depending on the system that you're going to be using, there can be an automated tick removal and manual tick removal. Automated tick removal can get a little carried away with itself by removing transients like snare drum hits or cymbal crashes can get messed up, that kind of thing. The transients and ticks can get messed up with the automated. So if you are going to run an automated pass first, it's best to do that at a very conservative level and then go back, listen through, and get rid of the other ticks that need to be removed manually. And as far as tick removal, there's a number of different ways to do it. Most noise reduction suites will have some kind of de-tick or de-clicker program. There's also a new type of, I shouldn't say new, it isn't exactly new now, but newer type of noise reduction tool called a spectrum editor, which gives you, give you an idea here of what I'm talking about. It gives you the audio in a three-dimensional view. So this is the view that everybody is used to seeing by now of a waveform. Little jazz tune here. Oops, I just chose one channel, unfortunately. There we go. Now, as you can hear, that starts out with just straight noise. Okay, and I'm actually going to zoom in right there because that's a good example of something. So here we have your average waveform. A spectrum editor looks like this. It's a color editor. And it gives us a three-dimensional view of the audio. Horizontally is time, right? We're starting and it plays through horizontally. Vertically, we're actually seeing frequency. So the lowest frequencies are down here, highest frequencies are up here, and I can see 100 to 20 is what we're looking at right now. We'll get into all this later in detail, but the color difference that you're seeing is amplitude or volume. So you're getting a three-dimensional view of it. And as you can see right here, we're actually seeing the harmonics of the guy's voice, if I zoom in on this. Once again, we will go over this in more detail. I just want to show something real quick. Fundamental harmonic of his voice, first harmonic, second harmonic, etc., etc. And you can see a real nice big long flow of them there. So as the music plays, you can actually see his voice go da.
Could be, should be, making me glad.
And we got a little dropout right there, I just noticed. We'll fix that later on. But there's a little dropout right here.
Should be making me glad.
A little dropout there. So we're going to use this for quite a few things. We've got some mouth pops and ticks I can see in the audio right here. So this little guy and that little guy. So anyway, a spectrum editor allows you to see not only time and amplitude, but a standard editor only allows you to edit by time. I can edit left to right, this space. I'm gonna, right there, I just selected from top to bottom all the frequencies. But if I'm using my spectrum editor, I can actually draw a little box and only edit this area of frequencies. Remember, it goes from 0 up to 20K right here. So I can remove just one set of frequencies on the left channel or the right channel. And what a spectrum editor lets you do that's different from the standard editor is pretty amazing things like remove a cough out of a live performance, or a door opening while someone's doing a vocal. Solo the track, and obviously his door opening and closing really badly, and you can actually go in and remove impulsive sounds like that from a recording pretty anonymously, like it never happened. It depends on the problem and the tool you're using, but usually you can get it to sound like it never happened to begin with. What I have here is a recording. It's an interview that was done a number of years ago by Mr. Bonsai, who is who works for Mix Magazine and a number of other publications doing photos and write-ups and stuff. And this is an interview he did a number of years ago. He found a number of tapes, and our archiving department was helping him archive them. And there was a couple of them that had some noise and ticks and pops and cleanups. So I think that might be a good thing to start with here, is just kind of go through this and look at some of these ticks. I can see right here that we've got a tick, if you look at that. It goes up and down, and that's going to tick. That's more of a thump. And this is where the spectrum editor comes in. And when I look at a normal waveform here, I can see that I've got something weird happening here. When I pull it open in the color editor view, or in the spectrum editor, I can see that it's happening in the low frequencies. So this would be more of a thump removal than a tick at the very beginning here, if we were needing to get rid of that. As far as how we're looking at the audio, there's a number of different ways of stretching. Is it going to be a linear scale or a logarithmic scale? The more logarithmic that you get, the more low frequencies you get. So you see how I changed my frequency scale, and now I can see that low thump happening there a lot better. Since this is really an interview and dialogue, that's happening at, I can see the frequencies along the side here. It's happening from around 90 to 100 hertz and below. So that could even be taken out with a low cut filter or a high pass filter. But for the sake of what we're doing here, I'm going to adjust the view of my screen a little bit so that I can isolate that a little bit. When you're working with a spectrum editor or even doing normal click and pop removal with this type of view, what you're able to see, and these two sliders set my low amplitude range and my high amplitude range. And what you're thinking of is, if I have a volume meter like this, low amplitude, high amplitude, what do I want to see? Do I want to see all of that, or do I want to see this much of an area? And where along that area do I want to see it? So I can actually go into the audio and get behind the loud stuff and remove things that are behind the louder things, okay? So I just adjusted my view a little bit so that I could get that guy kind of isolated, that weird little thump. Now if you notice, this thump on the left channel and right channel is not identical. One happens before the other. So I'm going to isolate them. Let's just do the left channel first. And we'll grab our spectral editor. And we just want to get rid of this guy. Oop. All right, so we still got this noise, everything there. That was really more of an example of how easily these things can work. That is such a weird buzz. Okay. I want to just give this a listen really quick and see how many just erroneous pops and clicks there are.
Let's see, we were talking about that period. It's the early 60s. Now, I have done a little research, and you were music director for the Kennedy administration?
Okay, so there's a lot of lip smacks going on and a big pop tick right here. Well, that sounds more like a lip smack too. I want to try just the automated overall and see what it's going to do to us. So we got random clicks going on. I'm going to put the frequency skew in the middle. And I don't want my sensitivity too high because I don't want it messing with his talking. One of the things that helps a lot with noise reduction is a lot of them give you the ability to hear the difference and only hear what's going to be removed. So real quick, I'm going to do that here with clicks only, and I'm going to preview it. Ooh, ooh. So what we're hearing right now is what's going to be removed when I hit process. And what I'm really listening for there is to make sure that I'm not removing any words. Everything there just sounded like lip smacks and distortions. So if I process this now, we can actually watch it remove all of those. Here, if I undo, got one here, and a couple here and here. And when I redo, you watch them all just disappear. Now let's listen to that.
Let's see, we were talking about that period. It's the early 60s. Now, I have done a little research, and you were music director for the Kennedy administration?
Okay, so two things I want to point out about what just happened there. First off, the lip smacks were taken away, but not completely. Right here, let me use the mouse. So right here and right here, I noticed that those lip smacks now sound a little more natural, as opposed to somebody right on a mic going really super loud. Here it is cleaned up.
You were music director.
And here it is originally.
You were
music director. We redo it.
You were music director.
And it sounds more natural. It doesn't sound like he had the mic closer to him when he was smacking his mouth, okay? Now, I also noticed this tick right here. Once again, I'm gonna undo, and looking at this guy, that little blue area right there, it's gonna extend all the way up when I undo. Now, the reason it only removed the top half and not the little part at the bottom, can you zoom in on that? Here it is redone. It didn't remove this low frequency thump, but it did remove the tick up here. That would have to do with this frequency skew or the click widening. Lower frequencies have larger waveforms, so it may need to be wider. I had the frequency skew right in the middle. These lip smacks that he has go all the way down to 50 and 30 hertz, it looks like, from what I'm seeing on the screen. So I need my if I want to get rid of all that stuff, I'm going to need the low frequency to be a little lower and possibly the clicking to be a little bit wider. Once again, if I redo that, we're still left with that little thump there, and you can hear it. Thump. Right? So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to skew down the frequency just a little bit more. Once again, I'm going to process the whole song, and once again, I don't want this to be an Izotope tutorial, but one thing with Izotope is to select the whole song just double click. But I've only selected everything in the screen. If I now zoom out, I can see that I've only selected that much, so it wouldn't have done the whole song. So if you're wanting to do the entire, this is dialogue, it's not a song. If you're wanting to do the entire clip, you have to zoom all the way out first to select everything, okay? Just by double clicking anyway. So let's process that with the click being skewed a little more towards the low frequency, and it should remove everything. Still didn't get that little thump there.
See, we were talking about that period. It's the early 60s. Now, I have done a little research, and you were music director for the Kennedy administration?
I'll be honest, I really like how it's cleaning up those lip smacks. It doesn't sound like the lip smacks are louder than the words he's saying, but I am noticing a couple of thumps as it plays through. This is one of the areas where it comes in really, really handy to have excellent speaker system and a full frequency speaker system that literally allows you to hear things that are going on down at 20 hertz. I can hear that thump, not just see it. You know, like not just see it on the screen, I can hear it. Thump. So let's go in and remove that thump. I'm gonna zoom in on him just a little more. Now we can either take this frequency skew and widen a click, and then I'm just gonna select the area around that thump. Process. Still not going away. Now, at this point is where I would reach for the spectrum editor and actually remove those frequencies and interpolate data back in. But I want to wait to get to that stuff. I want to just stick with the click removal right now. So on the declick page, once again, we've got the regular declicker, we've got the decrackler, and another one called interpolate, which is similar to what the spectrum editor program will do. And I'm going to go back into the view once again and adjust this a little bit more so that thump stands out alone. And I'm going to select just the thump area. And in the interpolate, we only have one slider, quality. How much of it is it going to interpolate back? And by interpolate, what that means, I'm probably going to say that 100 million times before the end of this. I have this area right here selected around the thump that we're getting. What interpolation means is it's going to look at the data on either side of that and redraw what should have been there with the offensive thing I'm removing gone. On the declicker, it doesn't give us much control over that. Meaning, I do it and it's going to interpolate whatever it interpolates. When we get into the more advanced spectrum editors, it actually allows you to choose where to interpolate the data from, whether it's coming from above and below it, or from the sides, or from one side, or from the other side, or from, you know what I mean? The declick interpolator in RX works similar. Notice how that just went away. So undo it, and look at the audio around it too. When we redo it, it actually matches the audio up to what was around it, because it's using the audio around it to replace it. So originally, what we had there was this. We declicked it with the automated declicking and got this. Whoops, sorry.
See, we were...
So there's one here, and there's one here. Originally,
See,
there's two of them in a row. With the automated declicker, we got rid of the click, but it left that little thump at the bottom.
see,
Now, with the interpolator on the declick algorithm, I was able to go in and remove that thump right there. Let's do that to that second one too. So once again, originally,
see, we were talking...
automated removal, and a little manual removal.
See, we were talking about that period. There's
That big right there is, I think, This would probably be edited down to actually start around here.
Let's see, we were talking about that period that
So anyway, getting rid of those little pops and clicks, it's not always just one removal of it. Sometimes you have to remove it in pieces. There's a mastering engineer named Bob Gatz who wrote a famous mastering book, and the way he put it was kind of removing layers of an onion. Sometimes you remove one thing and realize that it was so loud it was masking this other thing, and so it can be a process. A lot of people really hate doing noise reduction because of that, because it takes a long time. As you noticed, I might run a process on something 4 or 5 times before getting the result you want, so it can be tedious. I enjoy it when I finally get that result and it sounds great.